welcome to Legacy IS Academy. Now we are continuing with our Polity NCERT series. Like I have told you, the new NCERT has been in such a manner that all these subjects such as history, geography, polity, economy are put into the same subject called as social sciences. In these videos, we will be looking into subject specific chapters. Okay, so this videos we will all be covering about polity NCERTs. So today we start with 8th standard NCERT chapter 5, which speaks about universal franchise and India's electoral system. Okay, like as usual, we will see what this chapter entails, what are the key points discussed, what can we learn about this. Okay, so this particular chapter, Universal Franchise and India's Electoral System, focuses on the foundational aspects of democracy, explaining how citizens participate in governing the country. Now, they also start with the Universal Adult Franchise. What does it mean? Such as emphasis is given to every citizen who is aged 18 and plus years of age has the right to vote regardless of a person's caste, creed, religion, gender, or wealth. They further go on to explain the significance of doing something like this. What is that? Significance of doing universal adult franchise. What is it? It serves as the cornerstone of Indian democracy. It also ensures equality by giving equal value to every vote. Okay, not just giving everyone the right to vote makes a difference, but giving everyone's vote an equal value makes a bigger difference. Now, if you see with respect to this chapter, they start off as to how, despite a very low literacy level, literacy level at that point of time in India was around just roughly 14% in 1947. The constitution makers still decided that no, we have to take a decision to adopt universal adult franchise and let us trust the common man. Okay, this trust, okay, is what has brought us a long way in democracy. Further, they go on to speak about India's electoral system. India's electoral system is first they'll discuss about the mechanism, how elections are conducted to Lok Sabha, state legislative assembly, and your local bodies. They also discussed about your first past the post system, how most Indian elections, especially for your Lok Sabha, legislative assemblies, the candidate who wins the higher number of votes in a constituency wins. Okay. So next is with regarding to the voting processes. The voting process also speaks about usage of your EVMs, electronic voting machines, or VVPATs, voter verifiable paper audit trails. All these are used for transparency, and we are helping other countries like Bhutan also use this. Then we go on to speak about Election Commission of India. So this chapter highlights the role of your Election Commission of India as an institutional, independent constitutional body that oversees, directs, controls the entire electoral process. So it also shows the fairness of your Election Commission of India in order to conduct free and fair elections by enforcing your model code of conduct. Okay, and the next we will be discussing is about importance of democratic participation, is where we speak about active citizenship, where the chapter is aiming to show that voting is not just a right but a responsibility. So active participation, and also we discuss about the accountability. Accountability means voting highlights how the citizens can hold elected representatives accountable. Then the chapter also goes on to discuss about challenges and future trends. What, for example, it discusses the challenges in electoral systems such as influence of money power, criminalization of politics, and voter apathy. right? This also is coupled with some inclusive measures taken upon, such as innovations. What are the innovations? Like making voting accessible to all, including your elderly, disabled people. Okay, now they've started providing this voting from home concept. So on the whole, if you see, this chapter is giving a comprehensive view of how Indian democracy functions through elections and the importance of citizens' vote in the process. Okay, so this is how your chapter 5 is designed. Now, let's get into the chapter 5. Look at this. Like every chapter, there is, can you see here? Like every chapter, there is a thought for the day, as in thought for the day in the sense, what exactly do they mean about this chapter? This is by Alladi Krishna Swami Iyer in one of the Constituent Assembly debates, where he has held that India adopted the principle of adult franchise with an abundant faith in the common man and the ultimate success of democratic rule. Never before in the history of the world has such an experiment been boldly undertaken. Which means, see, like I was telling in the introduction, by 1947, if you see, there was only 14% literacy. Now, this was a huge gamble, right? Many people suggested, oh, why don't we give voting rights only for the literate people? But such a huge population, and yet the decision taken to no, everyone will get universal adult franchise was going to make or break the system. And fortunately, in India's case, we can tell that made the system of Indian democracy much more stronger. See, do you see this image here? This is where they are trying to provide your voting at home for elderly, physically disadvantaged. Okay. So now if you see the diagram here, it starts by telling, why is everyone so excited? It's just voting. Usually, most of the scenarios in India, the voter turnout, okay, is not very higher. It's because of the same mentality. It's just voting. The thing is, voting happens to be one of the most important ways how citizens can hold your elected representatives accountable. Okay, so when India starting pay, when we said it was a huge gamble, what is that huge gamble? That is that this universal adult franchise. What is a franchise? Franchise means right granted by the constitution or government. It is also called as suffrage. Suffrage means, again, this is something that the constitution is giving to you. You can exercise it as a matter of right. So when I say universal adult franchise, it means in simpler sense, every citizen who is 18 plus years of age will now be able to take political decisions for the country, exercise their political right, okay, in order to determine how the country is to be run. Okay, so universal adult franchise, okay, has been one thing that your constituent makers have been agreeing. What is that universal adult franchise? Every adult citizen. Here adult means we are telling 18 plus years of age. Okay, where they get one vote and all vote has equal value. Okay, and that 18 plus year person has a right to vote, but their caste, creed, race, religion, gender, education, income, none of these matters. Okay, you have to be an elector in your constituency and you should be 18 plus years of age. No other things are seen. Thus the name universal adult franchise. Okay. So was the adult category always 18 plus years? No, earlier from 1947 to 1988 to vote in elections, your eligible age was 21 plus years of age. But 1988 onwards, it was reduced to 18 plus years of age. Now there was a lot of debate around this. Should they have did this? Should they have reduced the age? And what was the need to reduce the age from 21 to 18? See, you're 18 when an individual turns, they have a right to drive, they have the right to many of your documents, take independent decisions. When they all have those rights, and when you leave them or exclude them in voting, which means you are leaving out a large chunk of the youth in politics. Now, these youth are what are going to determine the nation's future, and the political democracy, whatever you're claiming, is largely targeted at this youth. So, it felt meaningful at that point of time to reduce the age from 21 years to 18 years of age. Okay. So, universal franchise is a cornerstone of Indian democracy. What does cornerstone mean? Very important aspect or a defining feature. Understanding? Now, your elections to Lok Sabha, Legislative Assembly of every state and union territory, and the local elections in villages and panchayats are all based on your universal adult franchise only. This is mentioned in the Constitution according to Article 326. Okay. So, this is how a person can vote. What is the value of the vote? Okay. And that value of vote can be exercised in which elections? Which elections? Lok Sabha, Legislative Assembly, and your local body elections. Okay. Now, let's say you have to exercise your vote. You have to be registered as a voter in your constituency. Okay. Now, can a person be barred from voting? Yes, in case if a particular individual has committed serious crimes, then they can be barred from voting also in certain instances. Now, if you see, let's speak about the general election. Before we go ahead about with the general election, let's just have a simple thought as to discussion. What is a constituency? Okay, constituency is an area where, let's assume this is our country. I am going to divide our country into imaginary lines. Okay, I'm going to divide our country into imaginary lines and blocks, and I am going to call these as constituency. Understanding? From this place, people will elect their representative. Now, if you see, in 2024 general elections, about 980 million voters were eligible to cast their vote for 543 constituencies. What is constituency? Again, I'm going to divide the country into various imaginary blocks into 543 pieces. And for each of this piece, this block is called as constituency. From each one of these blocks, I will elect a representative. Okay. Now, in this, okay, India has 3.1 million elected representatives. Okay. from these chunks put together. Okay. Among these 3.1 million elected representatives, 1.3 million of them are women. Now, if you see with respect to your local bodies, panchayats and municipalities, we have discussed earlier, we have also spoken about the fact that women have 1/3 of representation or your reservation in your elected representatives. Yes. Now, all of them are elected through your universal adult franchise. Okay. Now, if you see, such a big country, and also we are one of the most populous countries on the planet. When this is the system, then we need to have a very well organized system to manage this exercise, that is conducting elections. So for that, we will be seeing how exactly is the electoral system managed, who is the one who is conducting elections. Okay. Now, look at this. Do you see the image here? This is women asking for universal adult suffrage or right to vote. In many countries, women were not given rights to vote. They had to fight, struggle for so many years to get the right to vote. Now, if you see with respect to India perspective only, before independence, only 13% of Indians were allowed to vote and franchise was not universal. Why? Because franchise was limited. Okay. India was among one of the early nations to grant women the right to vote. And in fact, if you see, many other advanced countries that they call themselves gave women the right to vote at a very later period of time. For example, if you take Switzerland gave right to vote for women only in 1971. Okay. Whereas women had to fight very hard in order to get the basic fundamental democratic right, which is right to vote. Whereas in India, okay, this values of women also having the right to vote has been embedded from the very beginning itself. So that was not a question of debate itself. All right. So now if you see with respect to India, in 1947 our literacy rate means number of educated, it was just merely 14% and about only 8% were women. Now many people argued that would it be let's say fruitful if you make everyone vote? Don't you think only literate people should be given the option to vote? Okay, that is what they felt. But in reality, if you see, literacy alone will not indicate that you have the right to take a political decision or your political democracy being exercised. Let's now list out reasons as to why should a country have universal adult franchise, or why did India in the first place have universal adult franchise? First thing, power to determine one's future is there irrespective of your education or not. Okay, your literacy will not determine, irrespective of the fact, every individual should have the power to determine one's future. And they have to be the one to pick who represents them and their interests well. Okay, so who represents people and their interests. Next, by giving universal adult franchise, you are fostering civic engagement, which means you are making people actively be involved in the decision making process in order to address the difficulties or problems in their respective areas in a very effective and efficient manner. Okay. Next is everyone is equal. See, equality is a principle that is the first feature of our fundamental rights. When you claim everyone is equal, then you should not discriminate, especially not on the grounds of caste, creed, sex, education, wealth. So, if you don't give universal adult franchise, you are not doing what you tell you are doing, that is promote equality. Next, everyone's voice matters. Every single person can participate in the best interest of the nation as well as themselves. Lastly, elected representatives are answerable to the electorate. So, people can, if let's say someone is not doing a good job for the people, then they can remove them from power. Yes. And also, one more thing is, the most important aspect people have here is accountability from your elected representatives. This is the mandates that makes the elected representatives work in the favor of people or work for the people. Next, how do you make sure universal adult franchise is happening? First and foremost, when we say democracy, it is nothing but people's rule. So when we say it is people's rule, wherein we also told that every eligible citizen can freely and fairly participate in electoral process and each of their vote will be of equal value. Yes. Now, first and foremost, for this to happen, we have one more hurdle. What is the hurdle means? Ours is a very large country with a diverse population and it is complex with regarding to your conducting elections in every single possible places. Meaning, the terrain of India is also not uniform. We have very hilly regions, mountainous regions, remote regions, coastal regions, a lot of regions are there. In all of these places, there should be a system which has to make sure, this is the set of people who are eligible to be voters, and for them I have to create a space where they will be able to exercise their vote to right. So, the population of eligible voters in India is 15 times the population of UK. Why we are telling this is just to showcase how big of a country we are and how big is our electoral process. So the population of just the eligible voters in India itself is 15 times the entire population of UK. And if you see with respect to area wise, India is 6 times larger than France. And we have a lot of geographic diversity too, like I told you. We have very hilly regions, mountainous regions. Now, who takes up the task of conducting elections for India? It is Election Commission of India. Now, this Election Commission of India is the one that has brought about several innovative measures, to remove barriers which will be affecting the voters to exercise their political right. And their idea is to make sure that no voter is left behind. So, the electoral officers usually will travel even to remote locations so that every citizen can exercise their democratic right. If you see in 2024 general elections, for the first time, your elderly people, people with disabilities, they could vote from home itself. Also, postal voting options were made available for special category of voters, and also many assisted technologies. What is assistive technology? For people who are blind, who cannot see, for them braille enabled voter cards, app based request as to if you need wheelchairs, ramps, etc. in order to cast your vote, that was also made available. So why exactly is Election Commission of India doing this? just to make sure that everyone will be able to exercise their vote. Okay, now look at this. Do you see these images? There is the first image where people are coming in a wheelchair. Okay, second one also similar way. Now here people are being able to vote from home. Okay, elderly people, disabled people. Do you see this images? This is your election commission trying to stand on its ground that no voter should be left behind. Okay, now look at this. When Election Commission of India is doing so much things in order to make sure that no voter should be left behind, then look at this also. About 34% of eligible voters did not exercise their right to vote in 2024 elections. Question comes to the big thing. Why? When Election Commission of India is going to great lengths to make sure every single voter has to be able to exercise their vote, why this is not happening? Why people, 34% of people have not voted? In the starting, remember there is an image where I told you that the cartoon just points out as it's just an election. So that attitude must first change, because it is everyone's duty to vote. Okay. Now, if you see the concept of voting, okay, is not very new in India. We have had this since very long. For example, if you see Uttara Meru inscriptions, which is dating back to your 10th century, it describes how elections were conducted in a transparent manner for your elected representatives. Let's assume this way. Everyone on the day of polling will bring, let's say, a palm leaf, write the name of the candidate, and they will drop it in a pot, okay, and it will be sealed off. Then on the day of counting, they will bring that pot, the counter, okay, as to the one who will be declaring, he will pick each of these palm leaves and read what are the names of the candidates. Based on that, they would pick the name of the selected candidates. Okay, so this shows that the concept of elections or transparent manner elections has been there since very long. Now here, just for a rough example of how exactly people get elected in the elections, to show that an example is given here. Let's understand that. Okay, so this is a illustration of a Suryodaya school, grade 8th, where they wanted to pick a class leader or a class representative. These three are the candidates, 1, 2 and 3. Okay. The why exactly is a class representative or a class leader needed means so that they can represent the class in the meetings with class teachers, they can organize events, they will almost act as a bridge between your school and students. So the three students who are contesting here for elections are Ahmed, Gurmat and Ravi. These three. So the class teacher is, she appointed Miss Usha. She appointed a election officer to make sure whatever elections will happen will be in a free and fair and transparent manner. So now we have this background. There is a objective. What is it? A class leader is needed for your class 8. For this, they have 3 candidates picked. Now let's see what exactly these 3 candidates were trying to. Okay, now because you are going to election, you have to tell once you come into, or let's say here in this case, if you become the class rep, what will you do for the students? So each student has given their viewpoints. What will they do once they come into power? In here, power means become a class representative. So Ahmed said that he will improve the cleanliness of classrooms and playground. Okay, so his is about cleanliness. Next, Gurmat. She was interested in helping all her classmates learn better, so she said she will create a system of peer coaching and mutual support. So hers was peer coaching. Ravi wanted to make the space in class more inclusive of your art curriculum, such as music, theatre, visual arts. Okay, so this will be in line with the new curriculum of NEP 2020. So there are three candidates. The three candidates are speaking about three different topics or three different things that they will do once they become the class leader. One is for cleanliness, one is for peer coaching, one is for arts curriculum. So now all of them go on campaigning. Okay, what is the campaigning? Your Ahmed keeps putting posters, Gurmat uses the notice board, Ravi creates music performances. Okay, now finally Miss Usha conducts the election. She'll explain the rules, okay, of how secret ballot voting will be, so that you will go vote but no one will know whom you have voted. And this will be entirely private and a fair voting. So voting booths were set up in the corners of the classroom. On the voting day, they said, okay, three names will be there, whosever name you want or who you want to be the class leader, mark an X next to their name, okay, and they will be the class leader based on your votes. And they also made a ballot paper in braille for Neha because she can't see. So all the ballots were received and it was sealed. Finally, in that entire class, if you see, total number of voters were 33. 33 members cast the vote. Miss Usha, she called Miss Shiba from the next class just to make sure that this is a fair process. So you witness the counting process. And in that 33 votes, one of the ballot papers were not marked at all. Okay, no one's name was marked, so it was declared invalid. The results were announced. See, total votes were 33. In that, Ahmed got 8. Okay, Gurmat got 12. Ravi got 10. Yes, you see this? So, 10, 20, 22, okay, 30. Now, first and foremost, if you see in this, technically, if you are to get maximum number of votes or highest number of votes means it should be somewhere around 33 divided by 2 plus 1. Yes, somewhere you have to get around 15 to 16 votes, but here no one has got that vote because this is the same system how we use for our Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies. What is this? Among the candidates, who has secured the maximum vote? Gurmat. She has not secured the total number of votes ka half or above half. Among the contestant candidates, she has got the most. So, she is declared a winner. So, this system of winning, okay, where you are just the highest among the contesting candidates, not the total votes, is called as first past the post system, meaning who crosses the finish line first. Okay. Now, there is also another option in your Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly. All the candidates, let's say A, B, C, D and all are listed. Last page, there is also one more feature of nota. Nota means none of the above. If you don't like the candidate selections or any of the candidates that is given above, you can pick this nota option. Okay, this doesn't change the result, but it sends a message. What message? That the voters want better choice. So your nota is more of a quiet but a powerful tool in the democracy. Understanding? Now, let's start with the role of Election Commission of India. I told you Election Commission is the one that conducts the elections for a large diverse country as India. Now, in order to make sure these elections are conducted, okay, first you have to understand there are various types of elections. I told you legislative assembly, Lok Sabha, your panchayat municipalities, that is local bodies, all have this first past the post system. Right? Like that we have various other types also. We will see that also here. Now, look at this. When we say local bodies means panchayat and municipality. Elections to panchayat and municipality are conducted by State Election Commission. Okay. For your legislative assembly, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, election for president, office of vice president, all these elections are conducted by Election Commission of India. Now, what is this Election Commission? It is an independent constitutional body which is equipped with the task of conducting free and fair elections in India. So, your Election Commission has been established in 1950. Again, for what it will conduct elections? Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, Legislative Assembly, your office of president, office of vice president, wherever legislative councils are applicable, all of these places pe elections will be conducted by Election Commission of India. The first election, the first general election for India, free independent India, was held in 1951-52. What are some of the important tasks your Election Commission of India will perform if you see? It will set the election dates, it will register the political parties, it will enforce model code of conduct, and the entire electoral process will be looked after by your Election Commission of India. Now, one important thing we will see here is Election Commission at which level who will be involved. Okay. So, Election Commission of India, if you are going to take, first we will see at national level, state level and at district level. At national level, we have Chief Election Commissioner and 2 election commissioners. So, we have 1 CEC plus 2 ECs. At every state level, there is a Chief Electoral Officer. Okay. At district level, there is a District Election Officer. Returning officer is the one who conducts the election. And lastly, Electoral Registration Officer who manages your voter list. People's name should come. No? So, among all these, who conducts election? It is returning officer. Now, we have seen that conducting elections in India is a very huge task. It has to keep, Election Commission of India has to keep on updating itself with all sort of modern techniques and to conduct free and fair elections, and they also have to work in an efficient manner. So, they have to be very much organized. Now, Nettel, it is a huge job. Look at this. There are about 980 million voters in 543 parliamentary constituencies and over 1 million polling stations. Polling station means where you will go to cast your vote. This much has to be there. This is just in 2024 general elections. Now, do you see how large it is and how many people have to be deployed into this process, including teachers? Okay. So, this is how difficult of a task it is to conduct elections in India. Now, in out of Lok Sabha, if I tell, I told you total is 543 constituencies. Now, among this, 84 is given or 84 seats are reserved for scheduled caste people. 47 seats are reserved for scheduled tribe people. Remaining 412 is for your general category. Okay. So, how do you contest? First, you go to the polling officer who checks your name and voter list and ID proof. Second, polling officer will ink your finger and give you a chit. It will take your signature. This is to make sure and tell that you have voted. Next, third is polling officer will take your chit, check your finger, and nota option also is available below all the candidate list. Last, fourth, do you see this image here? You will go contest cast your vote in electronic voting machine. Okay. Once you have picked the choice, a beep will be heard. Whatever option you have clicked, that same will be appearing on a printed slip in VVPAT, voter verified paper audit trial. Okay. Now, if you see one interesting thing here, do you see this person here? Shyam Saran Negi. He is a school teacher in Himachal Pradesh who became the first voter in India in 1951 general elections. In 2017, so from 1951 up to the age of 100, he has cast his vote. Okay, even at the age of your 100 years. All right, now look at this. India's electronic voting machines and voter verifiable paper audit trial. Now, do you see these two images here? 1 and 2. So, the 1 and 2 has candidate names and their symbols. Whoever you want, you have to pick. Okay, then last option will be nota, none of the above. Whichever option, let's say you pick this candidate, you press this button, then that will appear here in VVPAT. This will point out the name symbol of the person that you have selected. Okay, this is what it is. Okay, now because we have been using this for more transparency and fairness in elections, we have also told Namibia, Bhutan also we have supported in using these things. Okay, many other countries are also receiving training in this technology to adopt it in their respective countries. So what exactly is VVPAT means? It produces a physical paper record which will allow the voters, okay, to verify whether the electronic vote that they pressed is actually matching what they had picked. Okay. Next, earlier we also spoke about something called as model code of conduct. Okay. What is this model code of conduct? Why is it needed? Means, first and foremost, if you are going to ensure free and fair elections, then there are certain rules and regulations you have to follow. Okay, these rules and regulations are more like do's and don'ts for your candidates, leaders, political parties that they all have to adhere to. For example, let's see what are few of the rules means. Party in government must follow where they should not use the resources which are available to the voters for the purpose of elections. You are in position doesn't mean you have to misuse that position to make sure you yourself will come back to power. Okay, so you have to not announce any new schemes or projects which might influence the voters. Now, all the candidates are to exercise discretion and restraint to ensure elections will take place peacefully. Unnecessarily, you should not create chaos. Also, influencing voter through gifts so that they will vote for you is a punishable offense. Now, here are a few types of complaints that your Election Commission of India receives. What are those? The first image you can see, a candidate is distributing saris and household appliances to women voters to sway them to vote in their way. So that is also a malpractice in election. Next image if you see, a candidate is using abusive language to another party who is opposing him. That is also very unparliamentary. That is also wrong. Next, government officials campaigning for ruling party. This is very, very wrong. You should not use any government resources. That also includes your government officials. Next, bundles of 500 rupees notes found in car of a candidate during inspection, which means you are trying to pay people money for their votes. That is also wrong. So all these are violations of your code of conduct. Now, where exactly or when exactly did this model code of conduct start? Means it was first adopted in Kerala in 1960. Back then, voluntarily all the representatives agreed to this. Looking at this, your Election Commission of India circulated to all the political parties in 1962 general elections. Okay, but from 1991, Election Commission of India became extremely proactive to make sure that your model code of conduct is followed. Now, do you see the image here? This is of Chief Election Commissioner T.L. Seshan in 1990, where he brought many reforms in order to bring free and fair elections, okay, campaign to follow precise rules, voter IDs to eliminate proxy voting, strict vigilance on spending by candidates. So he worked very hard in order to make sure rights of the voters are preserved and the elections will be conducted in free, fair and transparent manner. Now let's see how elections are conducted for your various levels. First we will see is for your election to Lok Sabha and State Legislative Assembly. Usually elections in India are referred to as festivals of democracy, where the citizens will be the one who will be choosing what the future and fate of the country will be. Okay, so like in the earlier class 8 ka picking the class leader example, similar way is this also. Okay, where at national level citizens participate for Lok Sabha elections and state legislative elections, state legislative assemblies for state level elections, and they also participate in local body elections in their respective municipality and your panchayat. So for Lok Sabha, the country is divided into 543 constituency. The person who is elected for Lok Sabha is called as Member of Parliament. The candidate who is elected from a constituency to State Legislative Assembly is called as Member of Legislative Assembly. Now the way that they will win the election is called as first past the post system. We discussed in the class representative example itself. Yes. Now there is also something a more of a unique feature you can call it as the legislative assembly is called in different names in different states. For example, it's called as Vidhan Sabha, Niyama Sabha. Okay, so it is different in different states. Let's say now all the candidates contested for elections. People also voted, but let's assume no one party got clear majority. So that time what they will do is many small parties will or many groups will come together and form something called as coalition government or coalition for majority of seats in Lok Sabha. Then whether if a single large party secures that or a group of parties secures that. That is called as majority. Then they will form the government. A representative for the party which forms government is called as Prime Minister. Same way in the state legislative assembly when it happens, the winning party, okay, a single largest party or coalition party will pick a leader for themselves called as Chief Minister. Okay, so MP and MLA ka difference is MP is representing in national parliament, MLA is representing in state assembly. Understanding? So if either a single party wins in majority or a group of coalition party wins. Okay. So the winning party forms the government. The representative for them in the central level is Prime Minister. In the state level is Chief Minister. Okay. Now the center and state pe elections are conducted by your Election Commission of India for Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, state legislative assemblies, president, vice president, all of this. Panchayat and municipality elections are conducted by State Election Commission. Largely we saw now, first one was for your election to Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly. Now let's see how the election to Rajya Sabha happens. Okay. Rajya Sabha elections happen different than your Lok Sabha. Why? People are directly electing their elected representative in Lok Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, it is happening through indirect elections. Now, any person contesting for Rajya Sabha is also called as Member of Parliament, but he is picked through indirect election. Now, first and foremost, I told you constituency means country is divided into imaginary blocks called constituents. In Lok Sabha, it was 543 constituencies. In Lok Sabha, total number of membership is 245. Among this 245, only 233 are elected members. Elected how? Elected indirectly. How? Through your MLAs. Now, how is it called indirect? First, people. Okay, look at this here. People elect MLAs. Now, this MLA will elect Rajya Sabha MP. So, directly people are not electing, rather indirectly they are electing them, Thus, the name indirect elections. Okay. So, among 245 members, only if 233 members are elected by your MLAs, then what happens to the remaining 12? The remaining 12 members are nominated to Rajya Sabha. They will not contest or take part in election. Okay. But they are nominated by President of India to Rajya Sabha because of their contributions to India in various fields such as science, arts, etc. So, if you see why the division of your Rajya Sabha seats or on what basis is it, means it is based on population of that respective state, which means a more populous state like Uttar Pradesh will have more number of seats in Rajya Sabha. A less populous state like Arunachal Pradesh will have less seats in Rajya Sabha. Okay. Now, Parliament, if I am going to call, okay, Parliament comprises of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. In this, Rajya Sabha is called as permanent house because it is never dissolved. Okay, which means it Lok Sabha goes for dissolution. After 5 years, entire Lok Sabha will be dissolved. New elections will be conducted. Here, Rajya Sabha pe, you do not conduct election for the house, you only conduct election for the seat. Which means, Lok Sabha member has usually 5 years terms, means Rajya Sabha member has 6-year term. Okay, Lok Sabha is subject to dissolution, Rajya Sabha is not subject to dissolution. Also, every 2 years, 1/3 of its members retire, and this elections will be conducted only for those seats. Okay. Now also I told you Rajya Sabha is indirect election, right? Even though it is indirect election, it is not first past the post system. Here the election is called as single transferable vote, so that even smaller states will be able to get fair representation. How exactly single transferable vote works or proportional representation works? Let's learn that in higher classes. Okay. So look at this. Rajya Sabha is called as the upper house or the council of states, where Rajya Sabha members are elected by MLAs. This is indirect elections. Among 245 members, only 233 members are elected. Remaining 12 are nominated by the President of India. Okay. And also, seat allocation for each state and Rajya Sabha is based on their population. Higher the population of a state, higher the number of seats in Rajya Sabha. Okay. Now, how are the MLAs voting for your Rajya Sabha members? Through single transferable vote, where usually, let's say 10 candidates are there, means a person will rank the candidates, all 10 candidates in the order of precedence that he wants. And also, Rajya Sabha is a permanent house, which means it is not subject to dissolution, and 1/3 of its members retire every 2 years. Okay, so this makes sure that elections will happen only to those seats. Next, the third one. So we saw elections are conducted for Lok Sabha, Legislative Assembly, Rajya Sabha. Next, how is election for President of India conducted? Again, here also it is not directly elected by common people, but election is through for President an electoral college. What is an electoral college means? Elected members of parliament, which means elected members of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and also elected members of legislative assembly from each state and union territory which has a legislative assembly, that is so Delhi and Puducherry. Here also single transferable vote is used, wherein they will rank the preference of all the candidates. Okay, because the president represents the entire country, both your center and state has to take part in the elections, right? Center and state should take part in elections. That is why MPs and MLA together will be taking part. Okay, so this is very important to understand. Now here the counting rules etc. is very elaborate. Okay. Now if you see, who and all will not take part in the election of president means nominated members of Rajya Sabha, nominated members of state legislative assembly, members of legislative councils, okay, and nominated members of union territories of Delhi and Puducherry. See, first and foremost, let's take one thing. States, I told you parliament has two houses, right? One is Lok Sabha, one is Rajya Sabha. When there are two houses, we call this as bicameralism. Bicameralism, bi means two, cameralism means houses. This is compulsory in the center. But whereas in states, it is optional. You can have only one house, state legislative assembly, or you can have bicameralism, state legislative assembly and your state legislative council. Now in your presidential election, only elected members of this and this takes place. Even though legislative council has elected members means also this will not be considered. Okay, so only elected members. So who is not taking part in a presidential election? Nominated members of Rajya Sabha, nominated members of state legislative assembly, nominated plus elected members of legislative councils. Why? Because legislative council is optional, no? Not all states have it. And also if you see, only 6 Indian states have legislative council today. and nominated members of union territories, okay, of your Delhi and Puducherry. So this is how your presidential election happens. Now let's see, how does vice presidential election happen? Vice presidential election also happens through an electoral college, but here it is different than that of president. How? Here in vice president, both elected plus nominated members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha take part. No one from state legislative assembly will take part. Okay. So how are they doing? They are also again doing through your single transferable vote. One more thing is, see, for name it is vice president, but what is his main job means? He is the chairperson of Rajya Sabha. For the states are not needed. So this is how the election process takes place for Lok Sabha, Legislative Assembly, Rajya Sabha, President and Vice President. Now what are some of the challenges that we have with regarding to our election system? If you see, we are one of the world's largest democracies, but there are certain challenges such as growing influence of money, okay, many candidates are having criminal backgrounds, voter apathy, which means it's just elections, it's just voting. So in urban areas they have that lax attitude. So these are some of the things that brings difficulties in realizing true potential of our democracy. So how can we make it more empowering? If you see, through your media, education, awareness campaigns, all this, especially to your youth, and make them understand it is one of the empowering ways for you to claim a stake in the future of the country. So what did we learn in this chapter? Universal adult franchise is very important and most important pillar of Indian democracy. A right to vote is not just a right but also a responsibility, and all the eligible voters participation is very crucial. And Election Commission of India is a free, independent, constitutional body which conducts free and fair elections, okay, and they are the ones who make sure they conduct elections for your Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, State Legislative Assembly, okay, State Legislative Council, Office of President and Office of Vice President. Done. With this, we come to the end of the content. Thank you.